Welcome back, Week 3, Jeff Dubay Podcast. This will be Episode 7. We just enjoyed another 4-day weekend. It's how we roll. We do shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because it takes us 4 days to gather more material for the coming week. Although, I tell you what, hang on a second. I made some show notes. Hang on, I got to reach over here for my show notes.
Show notes, man. Look at this guy.
It's an outline. No, it's an outline. It's almost an opening monologue. But things got a little sidetracked today. Things went off on their own tangent. I mean, we have a big football weekend to talk about. And my sidekick of the day, sidekick du jour in the hot seat, is Josh from Cranky Fan. Is it crankyfan.com?
That'd be correct.
All right, I just want to make sure I got it right, because I want to make sure you get your whatever kind of plug you want to get.
Yeah, get all our cheap plugs in there.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Nail it.
Oh, I don't have anything.
I thought you did.
Well, no, just crankyfan.com.
Oh,
I was waiting for you.
Well, tell people what it's about. What is crankyfan.com?
Well,
is there nudity or anything?
Well, no. Not yet, anyways.
At least not you, thank God.
No. Anyways, no, it's basically you understand exactly what it's like to be a Minnesota sports fan.
Yeah.
You know, we live for it, and then all of a sudden it just kind of falls out for us every time. And I just partner with a couple people that I know, and we just decided to, start reviewing stuff, going through, kind of our true emotions of what we feel like being Minnesota sports fans.
And I tell you what, those emotions, they could ride a roller coaster here in the next 60 minutes, just following what's going on in Minnesota sports. We're going to cover it all. The Gophers go into the big house. They beat Michigan. They destroy Michigan. They throttle Michigan. Michigan sucks, by the way. I mean, Jesus Christ, is Michigan god-awful. But nonetheless, I'm not going to thumb my nose at a win at the big house for what have we been 4 times in 40-some-odd years? So you don't thumb your nose at that. Then you get, the kids were just fantastic yesterday for the Vikings. I know Bridgewater was the one that everyone wants to talk about, but Barr was fantastic. McKinnon was fantastic. It's not exactly Jarius Wright's not exactly an old man either. So I mean, you had some youngsters stepping up and playing big time. There's just a lot to talk about. Then of course today Ron Gardenhire is let go by the Minnesota Twins. So basically, what you have right now is a cosmic convergence of sports mayhem. If your mind has not yet been blown by what's going on in Minnesota sports, I deem it unblowable, which unfortunately was my nickname in high school and through most of my teens and 20s. But
and 30s and 40s.
Yeah. But we'll probably start it off. Well, in a couple of minutes, we're actually going to have 2 guests today. And I don't mean Josh from crankyfan.com. He's sidekick. Guests, like on the phone. So we're really stepping up our game, technologically speaking here. We're going to have 2 guests by phone. God willing. Jim Souhan at 5 after the hour. We'll talk Ron Gardenhire, and also on the same topic, Lavelle Neal, who's been a Twins beat writer forever, at the bottom of the hour. So a couple of Twins guests, talk some baseball. Obviously, we're going to get into the Gophers because we do love little brown jugs here. And settle down, Oprah. Not talking about you.
Wow.
There's the rim shot.
You started early today.
Where's the rim shot? Not talking about you, Oprah. But so we'll get into. We'll obviously get into the Gopher game. And just talk about what it means. Just how big is the win over Michigan? When I saw this team melt down at TCU, I wasn't at all convinced that they'd win a road game in the Big Ten. So again, we're gonna get into some ins and outs of the Michigan game. I tell you what, though, an interesting attendance record set over the weekend at Michigan. They talk. They got the big house. They got over 100,000. They got the big crowds. They talk up their fandom in a big way. And they did set a bit of an attendance record. Over the weekend, more fans left after the third quarter of this game than have ever attended a game at the University of Minnesota. There's another rim shot. There's 2 rim shots. And you don't like either of them?
Did you see the Coca-Cola promotion that went wrong there for them?
Yes, when they gave away tickets for like 98 cents.
Well, yeah, you had to buy a 2-liter thing of Coke, and then all of a sudden they were giving away tickets to the Michigan game.
It was a mistake, but they honored it for how many people? Like whoever. So they put it on. They put it online. It was online, and
I didn't get a hold
and a bunch
of
of fans got there at this convenience store and just destroyed it. And by the time they could take it down, like a couple hundred people had already cashed in at least on this ticket promotion. But they were sold basically. Yeah, you got like a 2-liter bottle of Coke and you got a ticket.
Yeah, was that a grocery store?
It was like I thought it was a convenience store, but it was like a 90. Like it came to a 98% discount on the ticket. So basically, it was a free ticket, which is. About what they paid for. If you're a Michigan fan this past weekend, but what do you think about maybe renaming the big house? As we're just about a minute from Jim Souhan, so I'm going to exhaust my monologue at this point and just say some potential new names for the big house since the Gophers rolled in there and did what they did. First suggestion, the Sig House, because you got smoked, Michigan, so we're going to call it the Sig House. Maybe the Dig House, because your coach dug himself a grave by keeping an injured quarterback in the game, which made no sense. I mean, I've never seen anybody try so hard to keep a bad player in a game.
Oh, it was brutal.
I mean, the quarterback, the kid was limping. He couldn't move around. And on top of it all, he sucks. I mean, he's god-awful.
2.6 yards per pass.
Yeah, he threw for it. That's we're dialing up Jim Suhan. We're dialing him up on the air. That's pretty exciting. Well, we could also call it the Jig House because we danced on that damn grave.
Hello?
Wig House because we pulled out, had him pulling out their hair. Hi, Jim. That's Jim Suhan. Can you hear me? Jim, tell me you hear me.
Faint.
Great. Well, you know what? This is a first time for us. We are, going with a live telephone guest, just seat of our pants. First time we've done it live from Devil's Advocate. I should mention that, by the way. We are at Devil's Advocate Bar. We are on 10th and Marquette, about a half block from the local. Can you hear me well enough, Jim, to do this? Hello? No?
Jeff, I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me well enough to go forward, or do you want us to try to clear it up and call you back?
You have to speak loudly, though. If you can speak loudly, I think we can do it.
Okay. I was reading the counts of the press conference. Jim Suhan of the Star Tribune and, of course, ESPN 1500. The press conference seemed to go very dog bites man. Very, very much you're nothing out of the ordinary at the farewell for Ron Gardenhire.
Well, Jeff, I thought it was a remarkable press conference. I mean,
really?
Can you imagine any other organization having a press conference where the general manager fires the manager, and then a couple hours later, they show up, they sit there together, they're both blunt, they're both honest, and the manager is making bald jokes and teasing people in the audience, and brings two kids to sit in the front row for his firing press conference.
Well,
it's remarkable.
Yeah, I guess.
And, I actually, we probably disagree because I know you love Gardy. I think it was time for Gardy to go, but this kind of reaffirmed that I had kind of tired of him as a manager. I love him as a guy. What a guy!
Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to disagree with any of that. I've been a staunch supporter of his, just because I know he can manage. But I've got to remind myself of something that I tell people all the time, and that is when a manager or coach, whatever the sport may be, is let go, it's not a condemnation necessarily of their skills. Sometimes you just have to make a move. I mean, the Browns fired Bill Belichick, for God's sake. I mean, once upon a time. So it's not. It doesn't mean the guy can't manage.
No. And listen, I do think that even if Gardy had nothing to do with the losing, at some point when you lose that many games over that many years, your authority is kind of eroded. I mean, players don't look at you the same way. They look at you as a lame duck. What you've been teaching and what you've been asserting doesn't carry much weight because you've lost all those games because players know that you're probably not going to be around much longer. So even if he'd done an impeccable job, it just wasn't going to work that much longer. And, I actually think that this year things did start to feel a little stale. I heard that Gardy's relationships in the organization were not as good as they were before, that he was kind of looking for people to blame. I think things were going downhill. I think Terry sensed that and thought that's why things have to change right now.
Jim, I'm joined by we rotate the sidekick chair on a show-by-show basis. Today I'm joined by Josh from crankyfan.com. He's got a question for you.
Yeah, were you just really surprised that not only did they let Gardy go, but they let everybody else go? The whole entire coaching staff went with it.
I don't know if you could hear him, Jim. Were you surprised that the whole coaching staff went? Clean sweep?
I'm having trouble hearing you. I think the question was about the staff.
Yep. Are you surprised they all went?
Yeah, well, no, and Terry explained that at the press conference. He said, listen, there are a lot of jobs around Major League Baseball open right now, managerial jobs, coaching jobs, and he doesn't want to have those guys pinned down and have them miss another opportunity, and then he hires a manager who doesn't keep them. It just wouldn't be fair to them. I think they're just being humane by letting them go. I think there's a good chance that Bernansky is back. I think he did really good work. That team scored more runs than the Orioles this year with a lineup that never really looked very good on paper. I think Bernansky could be back. I think Steinbach could be back. I think Alger's the kind of guy that they really like him in the organization, but I'm not sure he's a really effective major league coach. He's not very assertive. I could see him filling a minor league role or an organizational role. I think Rick Anderson, who actually I really like personally a lot, and I think he does a good job. I think the organization felt like they needed to try a different voice there. I think Rick probably moves on. And I think they also, Royce has been on this kick, and he's absolutely right. they need to have at least one coach who doesn't just speak Spanish, but is from Latin America, grew up in the Dominican Republic or Venezuela, can connect with the Latin players. I think that's going to have to be a part of the new staff.
Do you? A lot of people just assume that the next guy's Paul Molitor. I'm not going to say it should be or that it shouldn't be, but what do you think about the Minkiewicz theory? That, TK, when he took over a bunch of guys he managed in the minor leagues. Minkiewicz could kind of be the same thing. I mean, he'd have the Buxtons and the Snows in the minor leagues and then have him in the big leagues.
It was funny. I spent some time with Minkiewicz in Fort Myers this year, and I think he's doing a really good job. He really is hard on his play. The funny thing about Minkiewicz is when he played for Tom Kelly, he complained about Tom Kelly, and now he manages like Tom Kelly. He is all over his players' butts. He's sarcastic. He needles them. I think Minkiewicz is going to make a nice manager. But if you're comparing Doug Minkiewicz, who had a little bit of major league success and has had a little bit of success managing the minor leagues, that doesn't, to me, equate with what Paul Molitor brings. Paul Molitor is the smartest player I've ever been around. With the possible exception of Tom Kelly, he's the smartest baseball person I've ever been around. And while Minkiewicz has managed Sano and Buxton and Sano go out of their way to rave about Molitor. Dozier goes out of his way to rave about Molitor. Perkins goes out of his way to rave about Molitor. Molitor's on a different level than almost everybody else in baseball. I think the Twins would be foolish not to hire him.
You know what's interesting, Jim? Once upon a time, not that long ago, the best coaches and managers were guys who were not great players, like Tom Kelly, guys who had to know the game because they couldn't play the game that well. Things are kind of turning around. I mean, Don Mattingly has had success. Molitor is highly thought of. McGuire's has been a coach in the major leagues. I mean, now you're seeing guys who had big-time ability, taking that into the coaching realm.
And, here's my thing. When it comes to looking for an NFL coach, whether it was the Vikings, settling on Zimmer or the Twins in their current decision, I think it's just really dangerous to say this kind of guy is the best kind of guy to hire.
Yep.
Mike Redmond was a kind of a mediocre backup catcher and a goofball as a player, and I think he's doing a great job as a manager. Mike Matheny was a backup catcher, a pretty good catcher who had no managerial experience. I think he's doing a great job for the Cardinals. Joe Madden was a bench coach for the Angels for a long time. I think he's the best manager in baseball. I wouldn't limit yourself to one category. Go get the best guy.
Hey, transitioning from the Twins quickly, Jim, because I know you're all over the football weekend here that was in Minnesota. And by the way, when we get a chance, we'd love to have you here at Devil's Advocate. It's your kind of place.
Hey, if you buy me a beer, I'm there.
We'll buy you a beer and we'll buy you dinner. They got fantastic food. But first off, the opinion here is you can't thumb your nose at going into the big house and not beating Michigan, but bullying Michigan and embarrassing Michigan. But Michigan does suck. I mean, flat out suck.
Well, last Friday I was on the radio saying I thought the Gophers had a better chance of winning than the Vikings, and then they both win. I'm not shocked that the Gophers won. I am absolutely shocked that it was a complete physical domination, because if Michigan has anything, they have athletes and they have run-stopping ability. And the Gophers even whipped them in that regard. It was an embarrassment for Michigan. And two things have to happen for a Minnesota team to have to go to Michigan and win by that margin. First, Gophers have to be really well coached, and they have to be really ready to play. But the other thing is Michigan has to be completely clueless. And Brady Hoke might be the dumbest football coach I have ever encountered.
Do you feel like that, even though that it's great that we brought the Little Brown Jug back, that we're beating a really down Michigan team, that it kind of cheapens it just a little bit? I mean, I know it's great that we're bringing it back, but we're not beating a number 10 ranked, number 15, 20 ranked, Michigan team.
Jim, would you still have you, Jim?
I'm not. I didn't hear that last one. Give me a prompt.
Josh was just saying, is it tarnished at all by the fact that Michigan is so awful? Jim?
Boy, I'm sorry. I did not hear that.
The question was, is the win tarnished at all by how bad Michigan is? That might be it.
I can't hear you, so I'll just make up my own topic. I think that Hoke. Let's start on Hoke here.
Okay.
Think about this. Joel Maturi tried really hard to hire Brady Hoke. He went to San Diego and tried to woo him, and Hoke wanted nothing to do with him. This might be one of the great turning points in Gopher athletic history, that they didn't get Hoke, and because they couldn't get Hoke or anybody else, they ended up hiring Jerry Kill, who, remember, nobody in Minnesota had heard of, and everybody hated the idea of hiring until his first press conference when he kind of, he won people over. What a turning point there. And now you look at this Gopher team, and, there's a real chance they could be 7-1 heading into the tough part of their schedule. This is a team that could end up winning 8-9 games and going to a major bowl at this point.
I'm not going to sell them short because I just think there's so much unknown. When they come out of that non-conference schedule, I don't know a damn thing about them, and I'm not sure how much I learned about them in the Michigan game. But what stands out is athletes on defense, and it stands out because we've never had it, and now we've got athletes on defense.
Well, what's interesting about the non-conference is Jerry complained about having to go to TCU and play. He did not want to play that game. And then all of a sudden, and then his team just looked like it didn't want to play in that game. And other than that, and other than the fact that Strebler couldn't really complete passes against, in the last non-conference game, it's been about, they've been pretty impressive. They're a physically strong team. They can run it on anybody. They have quarterbacks who can run it on anybody. If they can coach up Leidner to become a threat, to hit Max Williams, to hit some of those receivers, they have talent to receiver fast. If they can coach Leidner up and have him be a decent quarterback over the next few games, they're going to be dangerous.
Hey, Jim, thanks a lot for your time, and enjoy the Wild game tonight. I'm going to give you a call and get you in here in person where you can hear us and have a beer.
I'd love to come, and I apologize for not being able to hear very well.
Not your fault.
But I'd love to come out and have a beer and have dinner with you.
I'd love to have you. Jim, I'll call you later. We'll try to get you in here maybe next week.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jim. Jim Suhan, old friend, Star Tribune, of course, 1500 ESPN. Somebody who I've always enjoyed talking to. A very intellectual, not an emotional, but a very intellectual columnist. Some columnists like to get a little rah-rah or a little or go the opposite and just be mean spirited. I think Jim is good at being a detached, intellectual, and somewhat humorous, sarcastic columnist. So I always enjoy talking to Jim. It's just too bad that he couldn't hear you very well.
Hey, that's fine. What do you think, though? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know what to make. I mean, I'm a Gopher fan, and clearly, I'm wearing the hoodie, and it's fairly well worn out, as you can see. This is not the first time I've worn it. But, my family's had season tickets since '73. And, I went to Shreveport for the Independence Bowl, all right? In 1985. in a minivan.
Wow.
So, I've been there. I've seen the highs and the lows. So when you beat Michigan, again, 4 times in 40-some-odd years, twice in a quarter century, I'm not going to blow it off. I'm not going to say, but nonetheless, it does have to be pointed out. Michigan is awful. Brady Hoke is 4-9 in his last 13. Now, this is a guy who, he came back in and restored the glory, and, they went to the Sugar Bowl, they beat Virginia Tech, and everybody was all giddy about it, but I think a lot of it was smoke and mirrors, to be honest with you. I don't think – he had Darnell Robinson when he got here. That had a lot to do with it. That had a lot to do with his success. And, this Michigan team is going to finish with a losing record. When I say losing record, they're going to be like 3-9. They're going to be awful.
They got 3 losses already, and it's just September.
They got to fire him. I think and when you play a kid that hurt, that injured – I don't think he's going to survive it. I don't think he's going to make it through the season.
It didn't even make any sense. Why would you go put him out there? We're already beating him down.
Yeah.
It's not even relatively
and the
close.
Kid was bad. The kid's bad too.
And Gardner came in and looked just fine.
Yeah.
He gave him a little spark. I didn't understand it.
I think that's what he was afraid of. I think what Hope was just scared to death of was Gardner going in and looking good and then having to put up with the questions all week long about who's your guy. I think he wanted to avoid that so badly. But you can't leave a gimpy kid in there who's getting killed. And we didn't just win this game. We bullied them. We kicked sand in their face, in their stadium. Cochran took a cheap shot. Just lined him up and took a cheap shot at the quarterback. And you don't bully Michigan in the big house. You just don't do it. I just think Brady Hoke is not going to make it through the season.
It doesn't even make any sense why he would. Michigan, they're one of those things. If you see what's the big house seat? 110,000 people?
It's 100 and change. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you got 100 and change people. Okay.
Yeah. More people left after the third quarter than I've ever seen a Gopher game, right?
It's a little different. You're going to bring 110,000 fans. They expect to be good.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is, excuse me, I'm choking. They don't just lose to Notre Dame. They lose, 31-0? They don't just lose to Minnesota, but they get sand kicked in their face by the 98-pound weakling. Style points matter when you're a coach trying to keep your job. And it's it's all kinds of ugly for him. But Cunningham, I can't think of his first name, but Cunningham was the color commentator on the game Saturday.
Oh, okay, yep.
With Mike Patrick. And I typically like him. I think he typically does a strong job. But I had to question a couple things. I mean, he really got on the Gopher bandwagon big time. Big time. I mean, he said after seeing this game and seeing them on film, he says I have them as one of the favorites in the West. Well, okay. I mean, the West isn't great. It's Wisconsin, it's Nebraska, maybe Iowa. But when he, by the end of the game, said, I have them as the favorite in the West, I pumped the brakes. I mean, I know LSU might not be, what LSU typically is, but Wisconsin had LSU to the wall. I mean, nailed to the bleeping wall. We are not as good as Wisconsin. I'll say right now, the Gophers, I'm not saying they can't win that game, but it's in Madison. They have the best or second best running back in the country. They have a better coach than they had before, by the way. I mean, they upgraded when Bielema left. Well, they did. They just flat out did. And I'm sorry, but is Wisconsin in another universe from Minnesota? No. Is it an unwinnable game? No. Wisconsin's better than Minnesota. The Gophers are not the favorite in the West. And let's not forget about Nebraska, also ranked, in the mid-teens right now and looking pretty damn strong.
Yeah, they
look healthy.
They just rolled last weekend.
They kicked the hell out of Miami 2 weeks ago.
And then you got, what was Melvin Gordon's stat line? I think it was something like 13 rushes for 266 yards and 5 touchdowns last. Was it the week before?
Yeah, the week before. Yeah. I mean, he could beat they beat the hell out of weak teams. But Melvin Gordon, I mean, his yards per carry for his career, isn't it like 7 or 8? Man, I'm not kidding. I mean, it's
crazy.
It's outrageous. I mean, it is one of the most ridiculous stats I've ever seen.
What I would love to see out of this team, and just this program in general, go to Camp Randall and actually get a signature win. Get a victory,
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that pump the fan base up? Jerry Kill and everything?
I mean, there was a few years ago, I think it was Weber's senior year, they went down there, and they might have even led at halftime. I mean, they're really gutty for a half.
Oh, yeah, we were at that game.
The white helmet year.
We were at that game.
Had they won that game, I might not have ever even acknowledged it happened because they wore white bleeping helmets. I might have denied it ever happened. I was so pissed about those helmets. But
I'll never forget, we sat at that game, and I think we led through the third quarter, and we got some really good seats, and then all of a sudden they did that jump around, and then it left, and we had to do the walk of shame out.
Yeah.
And all we were doing was we were chanting the axe was coming back.
Madison is a tough place to go, no matter what the sport, just because the fans are obnoxious, drunk assholes. I mean, let's just say it like it is. I mean, they're drunk, obnoxious. I mean, Bill W. would have no luck in the state of Wisconsin. Bill W. would walk into Madison, and they'd boo him out of town. I mean, he might be stoned. I mean, stone him out of town. Just say, get that. I mean, he'd have no luck there. But
some of the best tailgating on the planet.
Yeah, that's true. As a matter of fact,
like PBR,
a friend of mine.
Women.
God, I haven't seen this guy in years. I hope he's still alive. Badger Bob makes the best Bloody Mary. I mean, we had him at like a KFA on tailgate outing once back in the day, and he made a Bloody Mary. I still think I'm a little erect. I don't think I've completely gone soft from it. It's so good. I mean, you need a fork. You have to drink it with a fork. It is that good. I mean, they do a few things right in Wisconsin, but not as much as they'd like you to think. But back to the Gophers. Back to the Gophers. The offensively, they're okay. They're not great. I mean, the 1 for 7 passing against San Jose State, that was an aberration. We know Leidner's not terrible. I mean, that was a Strevler game, of course. But we knew that when Leidner got back in there and he's reasonably healthy, that he's sufficient. I mean, he's sufficient. And with Cobb, you've got an elite running back, an elite running game. I mean, there's nothing ordinary about how the Gophers run the ball. So offensively, they're good enough. But my impression of what I've seen, the defense is the deal.
Are they ever?
They're athletic.
Just fundamental
we got
tackling,
athletes.
sound tackling, even open field tackling.
Do you remember when the Gopher defense used to be just a bunch of slow white guys from Mound? I mean, it's not,
that was it.
Seriously.
It was like the whole.
It was the Anthony Burks of the world, and I went to high school with Anthony Burke. God bless him. But I mean, Minnesota was just slow white guys from the suburbs. And I mean, they've got athletes. They got guys who can get up and down the field. The Cunningham was raving about the secondary, and he's not wrong about the secondary is legit for Minnesota. They should have had 4 picks. I mean, they were all over it.
Yeah, what is it? There's 2 of them that were thrown basically.
Calhoun, or whatever. Bodie Calhoun.
It was almost gift wrapped right to them, and they went right out of their hands.
Yeah, I mean they've got athletes, so they can cover, and you have to wonder. how good they could be if they could ever keep Derek Wells in there, because he's the most athletic, talented guy out of the bunch, and he just can't stay on the field.
But I got a question for you,
Yeah.
and I'm going to flip it offensively on you a little bit.
Oh, and by the way, we're going to get to the grill the host at some point.
Oh, yeah, don't worry. I stayed up all night. I mean, I was sleeping by 9. But
And just to fill people in, don't forget your spot here. We're going to get right back to you. Just to fill people in, it's a new bit, Grill the Host, where the person in the hot seat gets to ask me 3 no-holds-barred questions, as long as they're reasonably tasteful. I mean, don't ask me which twin had the biggest crank on the 1987 World Series champions.
Okay, I'm down to 2 questions.
But I mean,
now.
I'm not saying that I'm the world's most interesting guy, but I've been in jail. I mean, I've been on the field for 2 World Series. I've been locked up for drug possession, and I've also, spent 3+ years in recovery. And what else have I done? Oh, I worked at a radio station, for God's sake. I had a top 3. I had a top 3 rated show with Paul Allen. So I've done a few things. So
Top 3 in your demographic.
Well, okay, 25 to
55
54 men. It's the demographic.
That's solid.
All right. So anyway, so from now on, folks, at some point during the show, you're going to get Grill the Host 3 questions, probing into the world of addiction, recovery, incarceration, World Series championships, and Arbitron ratings.
Sounds like an absolutely great book. Anyways.
What a
Or
dick.
song.
Yeah, there you go.
Continue. So now Josh's sarcastic nature surfaces.
Well-
okay. So what do you have on your mind?
Well, I was just curious. I mean, when I watch this team,
yeah.
okay, it seems almost as though this team isn't going to go, but as far as Mitch Leitner's probably going to take him. I mean, he's some real struggles when he throws that football.
He's hot and cold. I mean, I think he's still a little better than a game manager. But didn't we all know last year, after seeing him, I mean, this is sophomore year, correct? Right
Yeah,
now?
yep.
I mean, what did it take? 2-3 games? I'm spitting on everything, by the way. You got to put a spit shield over your MacBook, or it's just going to melt down.
Yeah,
I think we're 2-3 games into it when it was like, okay, when is this guy going to really start taking some serious time away from Philip Nelson? And I didn't realize it was going to be once Philip Nelson became incarcerated. But I mean, in all honesty, didn't you see right away that Leitner's a better player than Philip Nelson? It took no time.
I did, but a ton of my friends totally disagreed with me.
Not really.
They thought Philip Nelson was the
They
man.
bought the hype.
There.
They bought the hype.
And Mitch has been hot or cold. He's been a little hot and
He's
cold.
serviceable. I think Mitch
But he
Leitner's
is.
an average quarterback.
But then you got to
Philip
do
Nelson's
look.
a train wreck.
What is it this year though? We lost our receivers. So what has he got? Max Williams. I mean, and Isaac
Yeah.
Frichte.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the receivers. I'm not a big fan of the receivers. That's why I was really hoping that McDonald was going to get his act together, but he never did.
I know.
It's too bad because he had a chance. He was a special athlete, and he just. I don't know what his deal was. Just it's kind of a confused young man. But, from time to time, the young man will lose his sights on what matters, Puffy. And you'll just have to find your way back. Of course, I was middle-aged when it happened to me, so who knows? But we're going to talk.
learner.
We're going to talk to Lavelle Neal here in just a couple of minutes. As a matter of fact, why don't you call him up? 'Cause he said 5:30ish. Let's go ahead and see.
We'll buzz him.
See, now this is how things work in the world of podcasting. We go 60 minutes without a commercial break. Without a chance to queue up a phone call or whatever. I mean, we do it on the fly.
Fun.
Yep. So here we go. Is it going to ring right now? Just
No,
going to start.
I gotta find it. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there he is. Lavelle Neal, Star Tribune. Lavelle's been the beat writer for the Twins. I bet about 10 years now. I mean, it's unbelievable. As a matter of fact, I think he took the beat over from our previous guest, Jim Suhan, who moved on to be. A columnist. Of course, we can give Lavelle a little crap for his Bears performance yesterday. Jesus Christ, Lavelle. Yeah, the Bears look really sharp.
Yeah, well, they started out and you thought they were going to roll, and then all of a sudden they just fell off. Did you know that they didn't punt yesterday?
The Packers did not punt.
Neither did the Packers or Bears.
Neither team? Really? Lavelle, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Lavelle, this is Jeff Dubay. You know me. We're old friends. You recognize the voice?
Yeah, you're off at the distance, though.
I know. This is the first time we've done calls on the air on this podcast, so we're kind of seat of the pants right now. But if you can you hear me well enough to continue? Lavelle, can you hear me well enough to go on with the interview?
You're way off in the distance.
Okay, how about if I do this? If I cuff the, can you hear me now, Lavelle? Is this a little bit better?
Hello?
Can you hear me, Lavelle? Can you hear me now? Lavelle, are you there? I think we better just gas it and call him back and apologize. Lavelle, if you can't hear me, we're just going to have to gas it. I apologize. All right. Why don't you call Lavelle off the air, if you don't mind, Sean, and just tell him we're sorry. You son of a... I'm sorry, Lavelle. I haven't talked to Wobble for so long. And, he's an old friend, a dear friend. And of course, he was at the Ron Gardenhire press conference. But we did get some nice insights from Jim Suhan. So
The
we are
super spendy podcast equipment just didn't do it.
in all honesty, you have I mean, this I can't argue with this equipment. I mean, that's a very professional
We just-
mixing board. That's a MacBook Pro right there.
We maybe just should have tested the sound, more than a half hour before the.
I mean, it got louder in here. That's maybe the problem. We tested it before happy
it
hour
was
started.
quiet.
Once happy hour starts, it
No,
gets
I
a
had
little rocket in here.
I had a question for Suhan, but I might as well ask you because you're the next best thing.
Well, thanks. But plus, he couldn't hear your microphone.
Yeah,
for
there you
some
go.
reason.
But okay, so big Paul Molitor guy.
Yeah.
I would really support that if they went that direction.
I think that's what's going to happen.
But what do you think about some of those fans? And granted, I know there's some knee-jerk fans out there that they hear Ozzie Guillen and they're just like, that's what they rush to because it's a
Right.
change. What do you think the fan base is going to think of, if we go with the Paul Molitor? Same old.
I think, what? I think they'd like it. As a matter of fact, I bet if you polled the fans, they'd go with Molitor. To me, in my order of preference, it's Molitor first, Mankiewicz second. I never even consider a guy like Ozzie. I think Terry Ryan really wants to stay in house. I think this is a promote from within organization. Even as a quote from the press conference, on the Star Tribune I read just before the show about wanting to keep have somebody from within the organization to keep. Somebody who knows how they do things. Not necessarily the Twins' way, because some of that small ball and move the runners up and play fundamentally sound and get good
Guardy
defense.
said that was fabricated.
Some of that's overblown. There's no doubt about that. But nonetheless, you want to know how they run a spring training, or how they organizationally are constructed, things like that. I mean, it's not about Twins ball or playing the Twins' way, but they want somebody who understands how this is the pecking order. This is Terry Ryan. This is Rob Anthony, and this guy has this power. This guy has that power. This is who you answer to. This is just how things work in the machinery of the organization. That kind of thing.
I think, and I know you guys said that you really got along well with Rick Anderson, but I know a lot of the
Great
fans.
guy, yeah.
I think that's kind of the one that everybody's been pointing that finger
Yeah,
at.
and I think it's a little unfair. I mean, Rick Anderson had a really good run of taking guys. I don't want to say off the scrap heap, but guys who were really either struggling or needed a new start in their career or just needed a kickstart and found a way to get them going.
Carl Pavano.
Yeah, he had quite a few. He had a pretty good track record. But then in more recent years, it kind of went the other way. Ricky Nolasco. Not that that's his fault, but the guy came here and tore his elbow. A guy who's a complete innings eater, a complete innings horse in the National League. And when they signed him, I don't like it typically when a player goes in the tank and then he's like, I've been hurt. It's kind of transparent from time to time. But with Nolasco, I actually felt for him because when he came here, what they talk about? Innings. Terry Ryan talked about innings. Ron Gardner talked about innings. The guy has never pitched fewer than whatever. And you go from the National League to the American League, you expect your innings to go up because you're not getting pinch hit for. So so they're thinking they're going to go from 200 innings to 225, 230 innings. And they put a lot of pressure on him. So he gets here, and sure enough, he gets a little tear in the elbow, and it's sore, and he's afraid to say anything. He's like, damn, I'm supposed to be the innings guy, and they built me up as the innings guy. So he just kind of sat on it and sucked for half a year. Obviously the Phil Hughes signing was the bomb.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And we got to talk about that bonus. That's a hell of a story. That's a meaty story. The bonus for the $500,000 bonus for Hughes. But if Nolasco gets healthy in the offseason, and he should. You got the whole offseason to rest that damn thing. And he comes back and gives you the type of season that he's given, the Dodgers and the Marlins in his career. All of a sudden, your 1-2 is pretty damn good. And if May or Meyer come up and do something, and Gibson finds his way, the Twins are going to get good. I'm quite convinced they're going to get good in the next 2 years, no matter who manages.
They have to.
Sano, Buxton. There's a lot of reasons.
I know, but they have sold hope. I find myself.
Yeah.
I'm from Rochester. We don't come up to as many Twins games as we did that inaugural couple seasons, right?
Sure.
And that's just because why
507s.
No.
But, continue.
But you know what I'm saying? Why drive all the way up here and then watch us get killed 9-1?
Because you can come to the Devil's Advocate and check out the Dubay podcast. I'm a big. I know Sano and Buxton both had throwaway years due to injuries, and it does tell you that there's no such thing as a sure thing. But I hope nobody's given up on either of these guys. I know the organization sure as hell hasn't. They're still both the bomb. Their development, sure, maybe slowed down a bit. You're going to see them both next year.
If you're ever going to give up on Buxton, just go back and watch his days bound in Iowa there.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous.
Yeah. I think Sano's going to open the season here. I can't guarantee that because he sat a year, but I think he's going to come out of spring training as this organization's third baseman. Buxton, I think, will come up during the season. But those are just hunches. But, Dozier has emerged as one of the premier second basemen in the league. I mean, he's a guy who hits 20, 25, 30 home runs at the middle infielder. And, Santana has got so much ability. And he had been looked at as the shortstop of the future for this organization. And he got here, and they had to put him in center field.
Yeah, but why didn't we, at the end of the year, put him back at shortstop to see what they do?
They will. I mean, his future's at shortstop, and they know it is. But he proved to them his versatility, his athletic ability, and his just, put me in, coach, I'm ready to play attitude. This is John Fogerty attitude. That does mean something. That really does mean something to an organization like the Twins. But there's no doubt that Buxton is the center fielder of the future, the very near future, and Santana is this. If you look at what they want to have out there for the next, however many years, I mean, you're looking at Sano at third, Santana at short, Dozier at second, and Mauer at first. I know. And I'm the first to admit that I was wrong on year one of the experiment. I expected that he'd be healthier, that he'd get more games, he'd get more at bats. He would get. We didn't get your rant, Daryl. I didn't get time for your rant. I'm sorry, buddy. All right, you sure? All right, Daryl. Well, we'll see you sometime in the next week or two. All right. Daryl was the first guy to ever sit in the hot seat for sure, number one, and thank God he showed up because nobody else did. And he came here because he wanted to rant on what a jerk Brady Hoke is for playing the lefty as long as he did. But we've talked about it, so we got it covered. But it was kind of cool seeing a left-handed quarterback, number 7 for Michigan again, though, wasn't it? I mean, back to the Rick Leach days, back in the 70s. Remember Rick Leach? Nobody remembers Rick Leach?
I was just sitting there. I was just kind of playing it.
Well, as a matter of fact, Rick Leach, when Michigan was ranked number 1 in the nation, 1977, came here and got beat 16-0 in the Butch Nash game. 1977, Michigan. You remember?
I was 6.
I was at the game. You're younger than me?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I wasn't even born.
You were born in 77?
No, I wasn't. I was born in 82.
You know what, though? When I talk to young guys, and I mean, I coached a youth baseball team this year, and the excuse
Before
I get...
the incident.
But that's not very funny. that was kind of funny. But what I always get when I make an old school reference, like when we were losing late in the late innings, I give them the Belushi rally speech. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? And they all look at me with these blank stares. I'm like, Animal House? Belushi?
I don't even know what Pearl
one of
Harbor
them has the blue shirt that says college across the front. I'm like, you've got to get the reference. None of them do.
Nothing.
But you know what you always get? This is what Josh just said. I wasn't born yet. I'm well aware of things that happened before 1968. Why can't other people know what... things happened before you were born. I mean, you're not Christ. We're not counting, BC, from the year you were born or whatever. I mean, things happened. We didn't start the calendar from the year of your birth.
You had your own stats book by the time you were 5.
Yeah.
Though,
I know that things happened before 1968. You should know that things happened before 1970, whatever.
I'm sorry I blew up.
No, but Rick Leach, 1977, Michigan, undefeated. They were 1 in one poll, 2 in the other. And they come here and Butch Nash gives the emotional speech. Really? Because
I've never heard.
Butch Nash is an assistant coach for the Gophers. He gives this emotional speech that the players said that they would have run through a wall. They went out and beat Michigan 16-0.
Wow.
And then in 1985, Butch Nash gives a speech to the Gophers in Ann Arbor. He wasn't a coach anymore, but they brought him in to give the speech, and he went in that locker room and he said, in 1977. A group of Gophers went out on that Memorial Stadium field, and they left their blood and their skin on that field. And they beat Michigan. And Ricky Foggy and the boys went out and took care of business.
Oh, Ricky Foggy. See, I know that name.
But Butch Nash, he's responsible for 2 pregame speeches that have beaten Michigan in 77 and 85. You got to pay respect.
Is he still alive?
You know what? Now I feel bad because I'm sitting riding. I'm riding the Butch Nash train here, and I don't know if the man's alive or not.
We got to call him and have him give you
I don't think, with all due
speech.
respect, I don't think so. I think he was pretty old in 1985. I think he was pretty old at that. I've heard stories. I'm talking about Anthony Burke. Anthony Burke was on that team, defensive tackle, Hopkins, Minnesota. I've heard stories. Bruce Holmes and Ricky Foggy and Daryl Thompson. They talk. Daryl Thompson.
Rochester.
I know
there you
Daryl.
go. There's a 507.
There you go. 507. These guys talk about Butch Nash walking into that locker room in 1985 in the Big House, or as I call it now, the Sig House, because we smoked them in it. But see that bump up. There's my room. Yeah. But that Butch Nash walked in there and said, in 1977, a group of Gophers, they left their blood and their skin and their guts on the field. And the 1985 version was ready to go out there and spit out the Wolverines. And they didn't exactly do that. Chip Lohmiller, game-winning field goal. Chip Lohmiller. I'm trying to come up with some names that you might know. Larry Joyner. Larry Joyner, outside linebacker, number 20. Dwayne Dutrell, although I think Dwayne went on to a life of crime after his 3 years ago. But nonetheless, he was there that day, starting at safety for the Gophers as they beat Michigan. But I don't remember the final of that game. But Lohmiller kicked a game-winning field goal after Foggy had that great third down scramble.
I remember that.
Oh, man. All right. But I digress. We haven't talked Vikings at all. This is another toot my own horn segment of the show. I mean, who was that at noon yesterday who jumped on Twitter and said, hey, the Vikings haven't scored 10 points a game post Adrian Peterson, but they're going to break out today. I felt
you
it.
Did say it. I was following
Teddy Bridgewater had the week with the first teamers with Norv. I could feel it coming. Couldn't you guys feel it coming?
He looked good.
Josh?
Oh, I'm just sorry. I just want to jump on the bandwagon because you want to toot your own horn. I want to toot mine. I went on and I previewed the game, and I said that we were going to win by more than 7.
Nice.
I felt it.
Very
Same
nice.
thing.
Very
Same
nice.
thing that you did.
Very nice. And I mean, the two first drives were surgical, and the play calling was brilliant. I'm a big believer in North Turner, and he came out with the bubble screens and the quick hitters and built some confidence in his kid. Jerry Wright's got some talent.
Teddy has the arm to execute.
But you talked about it before the show even started. The word poise. I mean, the kid he's unflappable. He sits in the pocket, doesn't get the happy feet, and you see pockets collapsing, and you see people getting in his face, and he's just cool as he can be, and just waits and waits and waits and delivers the football. Fantastic.
There was one play that set it apart, and I think it was the second drive. Do you guys remember when Jennings went up the seam a little bit? It was a little bit of a skinny post almost. And
kind of left to right, from left to the right?
And Croy Bierman was on him, and I think he's like a defensive end for him, and he hit him in stride where he
Yes.
could only put the ball,
Yep.
and Jennings went on for 20 yards.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just something Castle's not going to do.
No.
Yeah. Well, not always, but not. But
No, but not on a consistent basis,
correct,
you know.
correct.
And just
That's right.
cool, calm, collected way he went.
Now, I tell you what, I started to get negative on Twitter. It was
Ripped.
It was 27, but I was right again. I was right all day long. It was 27-13. We had just kicked a field goal into the half and out of the half.
I even put it on here for
Yeah.
today because I agreed with you 100%.
Yes.
I figured you were going to
The
go
rules
off
were
on
getting
that.
on me. As a
Yeah,
matter of fact,
so
one guy
conservative.
dropped me. One guy unfollowed me. I'm spinning all over the place.
That's right.
But the guy, the Vikings had just kicked a field goal into the half, which was a shame. That McKinnon.
I know.
I mean, McKinnon gets stopped inside the one. And if the referees, now I want to make sure I got this right, if they rule him down, we call a timeout, we got 23 seconds left. But they don't rule him down, they call it a touchdown and overrule it, and we lose 10 seconds? Who the hell came up with that shit rule?
Yeah, that's awful.
And we have the choice to call a timeout there. And actually, Zimmer on his post-game press conference, what he did is he said the reason he took the 10-second run off was because he thought that we were going to run a play, basically, or that we were going to run.
Yes.
And then call a timeout.
That's what pissed me off, the play call.
And then they called a play-action pass, and you could tell he wasn't very happy about that.
Yes.
And then what happened is I looked at it this morning, and Bridgewater would have had, if you would have thrown it away right away, we'd have 9 seconds left still.
Yeah, but he's
and
a rookie.
And he held it, and
Yep.
we had 5. We had to settle for 3.
Yeah, you know what? And I tweeted this too because I was just on the money all day long. But with 13 seconds left and a timeout, it's a no-brainer. You're on the 1 foot line. You either QB sneak it or you hand it off to a back up the middle. If he's not in, you're all over the timeout, and now you have a time to either a quick hitter in the end zone or a field goal. But you should have time for 2 plays. If you call that rollout, that is a time-consuming play, and you're going to get yourself 1 play. I guess the concern is, as I'm about to have a stroke, I'm getting a little revved up here.
You are getting a little
The concern is, if you get into a big pileup, you can quarterback sneak in a big pileup, the unpiling can take enough time that it could screw you out of it down. But that rollout was that rollout's just a flat-out wrong call.
We had 241 yards rushing. It wasn't like it's a bad play to run it.
I agree.
Asiata's
I'm with
just
you.
crushing up there.
And McKinnon, both of them. They
The
both
line,
look fantastic.
That's something that you guys
Yes.
haven't mentioned yet. Is the offensive line
Yes.
did a better job yesterday than I've seen them do all year.
Yes,
They've
and
been
we've got a
suspect
guard
the
named
last 2
Vladimir.
years.
How many lines have a guard named Vladimir, and they're doing something? I mean,
Was
Khalil
yesterday
woke
the
up.
first day that you guys haven't, screamed Matt Khalil at the
Yes,
TV or
yes.
whatever?
Thank God.
I
God.
didn't even notice him yesterday,
yeah,
and that's a
thank
good
God.
thing.
That is
Yeah,
a good
you're
thing.
right.
No
That's a
offside
solid
calls.
point.
Yeah.
It's a really solid point. Then, but they got the field goal into the half. Then they get a nice drive coming out of the locker room, and they stall on a 3rd and 1, which was frustrating to talk. They're giving up 3rd and 20s, and they can't convert a 3rd and 1. But they kick a field goal, and Viking Nation is happy as a clam, 27-13. That's why I'm on Twitter saying you can't settle for a field goal at the half and out of the half and think you're going to win this game. And sure enough, they 14 quick points from Atlanta, and you're down a point, and people are unfollowing me on Twitter.
Atlanta doesn't.
Just one guy.
Atlanta doesn't kick field goals. Atlanta scores touchdowns. If you have Julio Jones, you look at their offense.
They scored 42 points the week before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, this is where 2 people came of age in the 4th quarter, and I'm not even talking about your quarterback. I'm going to talk about your head coach who said, fuck this, we're going to get a touchdown.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to say that for it all day long. I stopped myself at 5. But he said, we are at 4th and goal to 1. He was not going to kick a field goal.
No.
And I was so happy to see it. I mean, that was the right decision, and that decision and the execution on the play that followed is what ultimately won the game. But you know who else came of age in the 4th quarter? Xavier bleeping Rhodes.
Man, did he look good.
He took Julio. He was up Julio Jones' ass
He
in the
was.
fourth quarter.
He was.
And Julio Jones is a beast. And Xavier Rhodes nullified him. Just took him out of the game.
Did you see that coming from the week before?
No.
No.
Or from the first 3 quarters? No. I mean, Xavier was a man in
It's
the
all
fourth
mojo.
quarter.
It's all mojo. What's going to happen this Thursday?
Oh.
I don't know, because the Packers are bizarre.
They're
the
suspect
Packers are
this
bizarre.
year.
How did the Packers go to Detroit and score 6 or 7? What did they put up in Detroit the week before?
Yeah, they're
Then they go to the Chicago,
7.
put up
I know,
38.
I know,
Then they
I
put
know.
up 38. I mean, and by the way, on a play that was called for holding and did not count, Aaron Rodgers might have made the greatest play I've ever seen a quarterback make. Were you watching it?
Yeah,
I didn't see it.
Oh,
the run around, the dip, the duck,
it was
the
the
dink.
second quarter. It was the first half.
Yeah.
And I tweeted it. I mean, you just got to follow me on Twitter, Sean.
I do.
Sundays.
I follow.
That's all you got to do. No, I mean, but follow me. Don't follow me. Follow me. But
You got kids,
I mean,
man.
how many guys did you avoid? 2, 3 guys
Oh.
in and out of the pocket, like forward, backward. I mean, just avoiding their.
Teddy did that too yesterday.
And then he throws it straight up in the air. I'm thinking that's got to be a pick. No, it drops out of the sky, like just perfectly into the breadbasket of whoever the hell it was for a touchdown.
Yeah, not the
It was a holding penalty called it back, so you didn't see it on primetime or whatever. But it was as good as it gets.
not to take away Rodgers' beautiful play there and all, but you're right. What about that Bridgewater when he spun out? Remember that when he spun out over the left tackle, and then can't remember. Did he run for a first down? I think it's like third.
He had a
quarter.
couple of nice scrambles.
But the one he was done. I mean, he was done, and then he stepped up and he almost got sacked, and then that's where he spun out over Matt Khalil, left tackle, and he ran up.
You know when you can tell that a quarterback's got a feel for the game is a quarterback who's got a feel for the heat. I mean, a quarterback who's not scared in the pocket, a quarterback who knows
He can sense the
yes,
pressure.
even from the backside.
Yeah.
He just knows where it's coming from. He knows he's got that internal clock where he knows how much time he's got left, or how much time he's got till he peels out, or kind of does that spin back out to get away from the guy in the backside.
I would love to see, side by side video of
Jenna
Teddy
Jameson
Bridgewater.
and Christina Canyons, or whatever her name is.
Yes, and then the other thing I'd like to see is Teddy Bridgewater and Christian Ponder. Because a buddy of mine said it when Ponder was starting out. He said, "Uh-oh." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "He looks like he's about ready to cry. He's so scared."
You know what?
He
Greg
looks
Jennings.
so afraid in the pocket.
Greg Jennings
Whereas
said, all you had to know.
Teddy is either high or he's just naturally.
Hello?
No. I mean, he just
Hello?
looks. Does he? He's as cool
You
as
just
the
said
other
Teddy
side.
Bridgewater's high.
He's as cool as the other side of the pillow. He's
I see what
literally
you're
got
saying. I see what you're saying.
He's
He's
got that
mellow.
look that he's just like, "Hey man, this is all good. Let's just go down the field and score
Yeah,
some points."
you know
I mean,
what?
it just looks so
Ponder's
cool.
got physical ability, but here's what was wrong with him. And Greg Jennings, when he came here last year, said it perfectly because he spent the offseason watching film of his quarterback. And then he got into a press conference situation and talked about it. And he said, the kid, he's got all the physical tools, he's got the arm, he can do this, he can do that. But there's always a split-second delay in his decision-making that puts everything off. The pass is always just a little late, or the delivery's a little late, the rush just gets to him, the DB is able to jump it, that he sees it, but he's got to see it and go, but he's apprehensive, that he's scared. Like, he'll see it, but he's not sure about it, so he wants to wait a second to make sure,
Thinking
and now
quarterback.
it's too late. Now it's too late.
You know when he really, we'll go back to Bridgewater. The game that really made it for me, it wasn't yesterday. You guys remember, what is it, TCF against the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Right at the end there, and how cool and calm was he that even though it was a preseason game, he just knew, this is what I'm going to do, this is where I'm going to go. I scored a touchdown. He didn't, just great.
Yeah.
Yay.
You're right. He acts like he's been there before as well. I mean, he's got a lot of poise. And
He's a gamer.
The game that always made a believer out of me, or will forever make a believer out of me, was the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago,
yeah.
because he took apart Florida. I mean, with guys in his face, with blitzes coming from everywhere. I mean, just under duress. And he's just dropping it on a dime, just taking apart the Gators. It was just
So you got to give him a little
as
bit
a
of credit.
giant underdog, by the way.
You got to give them a little credit. The Vikings a little bit of credit with the draft, just knowing that without the gloves, not so much.
Well,
with the gloves, I mean,
How about the rookies? How about Barr, McKinnon, and Bridgewater?
I know. They're all stellar.
McKinnon was a college quarterback who they took in the third round, and he looks like a great all-purpose back.
Yes, and
Potentially.
exactly, because if they can get that little pass on the flat to McKinnon and he's out in open field, he could be stellar.
He's very dangerous.
I could also see him potentially running back punts.
I love Cheryl's zone. What are you trying to do with my guy Cheryl? Another Rochester guy.
there we
Another
go.
Rochester guy. Another
I like
507.
Cheryl, I'm just saying. McKinnon has that.
I think
look.
Cheryl's an elite punt returner. But yeah, no, McKinnon could do it as well.
Last week I looked back and I looked at it, and there's one play, McKinnon, he would have broke it for, I'm not lying, about 30 yards. There's one person that missed one block, and that was Matt Khalil. There was one right up in the run block, and I drew a diagram of it, and it was wide open.
Yeah, I mean, and he did break. He had at least one explosive play, if not a couple. McKinnon did one running, and at least one running, and I think he had one passing as well, or receiving.
The best blocking receiver on that team is Patterson.
He had a great downfield block.
Oh my God!
On a long run, was it by McKinnon?
And barely got the ball. How many times did Patterson get the ball?
They're having a hard time getting him the ball.
Two times. They got 2 times, 4 targets, 38.
I mean, you got to try some more end arounds.
I was disappointed to see him fail to take a couple of kicks out. I mean, there's no such thing as a kick he should down.
Well, they shouldn't have been out of gas because they barely got the ball.
Yeah, but they got to find a way to get him.
They haven't even designed. When's the last time they designed a run? First game?
Yeah, you're right.
Has he been in the backfield yet?
He had 3 runs.
I wonder. It makes me wonder if
if
he got a little beat up in that Rams game, and that got him a little concerned. But hey, we're down to the final 10 minutes of the show here, so we got to get to grill the host.
Oh, geez.
Don't you think? I mean, it's a new bit.
Gotta have grill.
We got to see what kind of legs it's got. You know, Julius did a nice job.
Place. We got grilling.
Julius did. Oh, you know what? I don't stroke the sponsor enough because they're such amazing hosts to us here at Devil's Advocate. Have you eaten anything, Josh? Have you eaten anything?
No.
Oh, dude, you got it. I just had the Moby Dick. I can't say that with a straight face. But it's a fish sandwich, people. Grow up. It's the second time I've had the Moby Dick with fries. It is so...
Their fries are...
The fries are outrageous.
Well, I mean, I look forward to them all 4 days off.
The waitress came up to me. I mean, I didn't think it was taking an unusual amount of time, but she came up to me and says, the reason it's taking a little longer is because we're cutting the potatoes right now. So I'm like, dude, if that's what you're doing, take another 10 minutes.
Good.
I mean, take another whatever long it takes. I mean, there's fresh slice of the fries in the back. But Devil's Advocate, 40 craft beers. It's called Atlantic Fare. That's what they call the menu. It's loaded with meat. I mean, meat. It's just loaded with steak. It's loaded with meatballs. It's loaded with sandwiches. I mean, get your protein on at Devil's Advocate.
10th and Marquette downtown.
Yeah, right by the local, right around the corner from the local. So, as a matter of fact, anybody who knows that big parking lot with the musical notes on the side of the building, that's what we're across the street from. That's become a bit of a landmark.
Yeah, next to the Hilton too. Just
by the
west
Hilton
of
too.
the Hilton.
Yep, you got it. So anyway, you got anything for Grill the Host before we say goodbye?
Yeah, of course I got that. But
right.
this is where we go from being friends to enemies right here.
Uh-oh.
No.
Oh, you mean the 507 didn't do
Yeah,
it?
well, no. Still Minnesota here. So,
all right.
Basically, my biggest question is you were one of the lead dogs. That's what I grew up on. PA Dubay days.
I know. It makes me sad. I miss it. I'm stuck doing this.
ESPN 1500.
I'm just kidding.
But that's where my question goes.
Yeah.
Does that kind of like right now that you're doing podcasts? Are you kind of just make you want to become bigger, better? Is that what you're going to go with?
No, in all honesty.
Or are you relatively happy doing what you're doing
This
right
is a
now?
blast. I mean, do we seem like we're having fun? I mean, this is a blast.
I mean, I know you're not going to bash it, but I mean, I just want to know.
When I got let go by 1500, I pretty much figured that was my last. I mean, you can't. There's only so many chances. I didn't do anything wrong. So I just smacked the microphone. I mean, there are only so many stations. There are only so many opportunities. And even though I did nothing wrong at 1500, I mean, you're there for a year, and they have to have some budget cuts. I mean, talk to Patrick Hammer and Brad Satin. I mean, it was on TV as well as radio. A lot of guys had to. Rusty, who's going to be here tomorrow. I mean, a lot of guys were sent packing right in that same time frame. So, I mean, when that happened, I pretty much figured I was done in radio. You never know, though. I mean, who knows? I mean, things happen, things change. But then, Sean came along with the opportunity on the Bernard Podcast Network, and of course, we had that stupid blow up that I'm not proud of. But at that point, I'm pretty sure. I'm looking at a career as a. Well, I don't want to trash Garbage Man because Garbage Man, they're highly trained compared to me. I've got the skills of an ape. I mean, and not the sign language apes. I mean, like the dumb sit and fling feces at the zoo apes. I mean,
see, you still got brand power. I mean, with my age generation, they hear. I mean, we used to yell Puffy across the room all the time.
I miss the Puffy sounder. I've done it twice during the show.
I'm going to just in that same question. Does it bother you like? People like me, every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there, they can be a podcaster, but most of them, if you listen to them, they have absolutely no clue what's actually really going on.
Well, they don't have any downloads either.
The podcast world is kind of going the way of the blogosphere, as annoying as that term is. That when it became really easy to blog, everybody started blogging, and everybody thought they were writers. But the best blogs really came from the best writers. So what's happening with the podcast world is radio has changed dramatically. Radio stations are voice tracking all over the place.
Sure.
And
Oh,
so
God.
that means that you got one announcer who's on 8 stations throughout the country.
Hey, you can't come up to a small market anymore.
No, you can't.
Like
And
the way
so-
Howard Stern in Private Parts, that stuff doesn't exist
So
anymore.
what's cool is now it's easy to podcast and it's easy to distribute that podcast, easy to receive it.
Yeah.
And guys like Jeff can do his own show and actually make more money doing a podcast and have no
So he
FCC, no FCC looking over him. And we can build something like this and come into a bar
Well, and here's the
do
thing:
our own
not many people know how. And I'm not trying to stroke you here, but not many people know how to market it and sell it. But that's what Sean's done his whole career: is digital sales and media sales. And he knows how to take download numbers and basically transcribe them into ratings for potential advertisers. And it's a very direct form of marketing.
But I mean, it's just when you look at it, everybody thinks that they can do this, and it's not easy to do it.
No, it's not. As a matter of fact,
I mean, you can talk into a microphone, but you can't actually, content-wise, you don't. I mean, you're not going to have anybody listen to you if you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
no, but you know what? It's gotten a lot easier. I mean, the first week, like our second show, nobody showed up for that chair, and I have 60 minutes of nonstop with no commercial
You
breaks.
were all
just
over
go-
the board on that
Oh
one.
my God, I was a maniac.
tough.
People must have thought I was having a stroke. I feel sorry. The people who listened must have needed a nap when it was over, if they got through it all. I mean, it was just frantic. It was frenetic
People have
and frantic.
no idea how tough that is. To
But
speak
I
for
mean,
1 hour
but since
without a
then-
commercial break.
Since then, though, I mean, we got like round table. We got Sean on a mic. We got
Yep.
we got Josh on a mic. We always have somebody in the seat. Tomorrow, Rusty Gatenby is going to sit in that seat with a special announcement, if I'm not mistaken. Can
Absolutely.
I tease it to that extent?
You can tease it.
I mean, dude, you're reasonably polished. I mean, seriously. I mean, you sound like you've done this before. You've got opinions. You got some attitude. You got a nice all-star shirt on.
I got 2 kids. I just have to sit at home and watch sports. I mean, that's all I do anymore.
Well, I mean, you got a pretty nice setup from the picture you showed me, and you, by the way, have yet to be distracted by the lovely Carissa, which tells me you've got unhuman-like focus. Now he's going to see.
Well, yeah, now-
Did I just
now-
ruin it? Did I just ruin it for him?
Is this where I drop the mic and walk away?
I mean, have you noticed Carissa? Because I can introduce you. I mean, I'm not going to say she's going to like you, but I can introduce you. But I mean, look at her.
Then as I put my wedding ring up, because
Oh,
my
yeah.
wife will probably listen.
You know what? I was always told that once you get a wedding ring on, it's like a chick magnet. I didn't get hit on once when I was married. Not once. Not even by my wife. No woman had interest in me when I was married.
I did once, but that's neither.
You hit on me when I was married?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a little
No.
creepy.
I said I was hit on once
Oh,
when I was married. But
see,
that's
the
neither
ring
here
did
nor
nothing
there.
for me. But I mean,
Really?
and I'm a solid-looking dude. You think no, I'm just kidding. But in all honesty, a wedding ring, the whole wedding ring, that's a myth. Do you get hit on it because of the ring?
I don't pay attention. We're from small areas. I don't
Where do you
even.
live?
Are you
You're
actually
from
from
Rochester, but
Rochester?
you still live down there?
No, I'm actually just south of there. I have an office up in Rochester, and that's kind of where I work at.
Up in
Stuart
Rochester.
Miller.
If you refer to Rochester as
Just,
up,
that's almost where my office is. I'm right
Okay.
by the airport there. But no, it's Chatfield. I always just use Rochester. Nobody's going to know
now
us.
that's a great place to have a talk show. Chatfield.
There's
Hey,
a bunch of Bernards
think about
down
it.
in Chat.
There is a ton of Bernards
I was just
down
making
there.
a bad pun, but
I got one quick question for you, just because I want to know.
is this the last of the Gorilla hosts?
This isn't even grilling it because
Oh.
we talked Twins. Because I wasn't expecting Ron Gardenhire to get fired. So
Yeah, neither was
obviously,
I. Neither was I.
it just stole my thunder. But don't worry about it.
That's all right.
This Dunks After Dark thing, does it do anything for
Not
you?
a thing. Not a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we get Midnight Madness because college basketball, you can only start practice on a certain date. So they get the Midnight Madness going. They can start it, the midnight the day before, whatever. So why does the NBA have to mimic it or mock it? Well, I guess because everything in a capitalist society is copycat. I mean, once somebody sees something that's commercially successful, they copy it, right? So you think there'd be a couple of knockoff Dubay podcasts coming out here pretty soon? Maybe a couple of.
I'm gonna do one when I get home here.
There you go. But I mean, who cares about watching a bunch of NBA guys get into a practice and dunk? If you're in the NBA and you can't dunk, I mean, please, that would be a story. I mean,
Even Spud Webb could dunk, right?
Bud Webb won the dunk contest, which
5'6".
was bull. Which is bull. I still remember that. What was it, 1987, 88, whatever?
88.
They beat like Dominique. I mean, come on. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's ridiculous.
Well, they gave him like dispensation for being a dwarf. I mean, it's understand. Is that a politically incorrect term?
I don't think that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, whatever. Well, I mean, he was an extra in The Wizard of Oz, for God's sake. So they gave him a little special dispensation for not having to use the mini tramp. But it's amazing that a guy who was 5'7" or 5'8" could do what he was doing. But was he better than Dominique that day? I mean, come on. I mean, it's a 30-year-old slam dunk contest, and it's still a bee in my bonnet. How pathetic is that, dude? Will you just calm me down? Oh, 2 minutes.
I could almost dunk,
Yeah.
in high school.
No, you couldn't.
I could too.
Come on.
I could too. I could get up.
I'll tell you right now, no Irish man has ever dunked in the history of basketball.
am
Not
the
even on a
man.
Nerf hoop.
I could dunk a women's basketball, but
Hold
don't
on.
ask me why I was
Isn't
using
there
it.
Wait, no, I suppose
think-
that's not Irish. I was going to say there's an Olenek for Boston, but that's not Irish.
I don't think anybody of Irish descent has ever dunked a basketball on a regulation rim ever in the history of the sport.
Kevin McHale.
Oh God, you got me. You got me. Does he have to be Irish because his name's McHale? Are we going to go racial stereotypes?
You never know.
Well, there you go. Scottish people are allowed to dunk. Hey, Josh, thanks for coming down.
Hey, it
I
was
hope you had
great.
fun.
Oh, absolutely. I hunted you down, remember?
You did actually.
I did.
It was right when I started advertising for the hot seat position. As a matter of fact, I've been really slacking on this. I don't think we have anybody for Wednesday. We have somebody for tomorrow, and we have my friend Ted for next Monday the 6th. I could be wrong, but I think it's open after that. So anybody who, dude, second, you can double up. You want to come back?
Yep,
pick
I'd
a
love
date.
to.
Pick a date. We're on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, 5 o'clock. Devil's Advocate Bar, 10th and Marquette, downtown Minneapolis. Great food, 40 craft beers. You want some meat? You want a sandwich? You want some meatballs? You want a big old steak? There's a place to come get it. You want some weird art with the Statue of Liberty, duking it out with the UFOs and the people from the Masons, with the boxing gloves and the squids and the jellyfish. It's a bizarre artwork, but it is what it is. Devil's Advocate, Jeff Dubay Podcast. We need to suck it.
Jeff,
Are we
suck
done?
it.
Oh, thanks. We didn't get